Hi all, today we're going to look at one of my instructive blunders from the British Championship. In the very last round I was playing against quite a strong player, Quillan, who has 4 IM norms and is rated around 23-30. I was playing black. In this position at move 18 he played the move c4. So he's giving himself a potential tactical vulnerability on the b file, that knight, so he's tying down his queen to the protection of that knight potentially. And I seized the opportunity to play d4 because I don't really want him opening that semi-open line against my pawn on c5, and I feel that I've got a protected passed pawn now on d4, so I was a little bit surprised by this decision by him. But the point now is revealed. He plays the move bishop g5, and all of a sudden I spot that his idea is actually he's going to reroute that knight potentially to knight d2 to e4 and then potentially come into my weak d6 square. So my question to you readers now, viewers, is after this bishop g5 I want to ask you, how good is your prophylaxis? So basically, what is prophylaxis? I believe when Nimzowitsch talked about it, he's really talking about strengthening your position before going on to the attack. Now here, you're faced with a positional plan from the opponent, a dangerous positional plan. How do you stop this dangerous positional play in a safe way so that later you can carry on with your attacking plans yourself? So here, you're faced with bishop g5. I blundered in the game, unfortunately. I should have really taken account of my tactical vulnerabilities. There's at least three. There's an unprotected rook on a8, an unprotected one on g8, and my king's still stranded in the centre. I do have casting rights for the queen side still, so if I could have got in the move knight c6 and castles, I would have been quite nicely placed in this position. Here though, what is our best prophylactic move? I'm going to give you 10 seconds to either stop the video or think about it yourself now. You're faced with the move bishop g5, which seems to want to try and weaken your d6 square. So 10 seconds starting from now for what the best move you would play here is. Okay, I think there are two ideas. If you had chosen f5, I would say that's an attempt at prophylaxis, but it's a bit dangerous because he can now play bishop takes e7, king takes, and the king's still stuck in the centre. So this potentially, Ribke gives this as a slight advantage to white. So he can get rid of his tactical vulnerability. He can play knight d2. Now say you wanted to stop the use of g5 from white, so let's go with the rook move g5. But here, white still has quite dangerous options, tactical options like knight f4, exploiting that vulnerability still on g8. And even maybe f4 is also dangerous. So f4, say g5, then queen h4 is giving white a big advantage, or a significant advantage, knight g5. It's a bit unpleasant, but maybe you can defend it here with rook a7. So give yourself 2 points if you had chosen in this position the move f5. That's not bad. Now, what other moves? If you'd chosen knight c6, so you're basically saying that knight d2 to e4 can be parried just with knight c6 in a way. Let's have a look. Bishop takes, knight d2. So is this such a dangerous idea? Well, actually, it's not such a big deal according to Ribke. Knight fg6, and you can counterattack on the e5 pawn. And you have time for this, because knight e4 here can be answered with knight f5, double attacking the queen and d6. So say the queen moves, let's attack c5. And now here, maybe you can get away with knight takes e5, so you've removed that problem altogether of the d6 square. Yeah, so that's not a bad idea. Just give yourself 5 points if you just played the casual knight c6. I think though there's a more powerful continuation which gives white the least opportunity for attacking your position in a positional way. Just simply taking and apparently giving white the concession that you've weakened d6, you've exchanged off your defensive bishop. Because after knight takes g5, Because of your knight on f8, that's not a problem. You're defending h7. Okay, and now there's an immediate rerouting of this knight to e4 to d6. So how can we cope with this? Well, here, there's a nice tactical resource, really using this pin the other way now, f5. And so what is white doing here? Now, Rybka gives this as equal, but after knight d2, knight c6, it's clear actually that black is in a promising position to evolve an increasing positional advantage. So, for example, after this queen f3, let's try castles. Queen g3. So what's the idea of queen g3? Maybe knight f3. So let's say queen b7, just to protect f7. h4, and now black's starting to be better. So say h6, kicking the knight back. And now even g5, and black's starting to be very well placed. So look at all the positional trumps. The pass pawn on d4, secured by c5. Black's gaining space on the king side. You know, the rook's going to be connected soon. And white's king, you know, is in danger now. Obviously, you know, let's have a look. This looks far too risky to take on g5. Just knight h7 here. And if f4 then takes. And now either d3 Rybka thinks is strong, or even queen takes b2 is seen as strong. But maybe even more direct ways. But let's have a look at queen takes b2. So knight b3. And now d3. And, you know, white's king is really in the firing line. So this would have been an ideal attacking position. So I think out of all the prophylactic options for strengthening the position here before going on to the attack, after this bishop g5, I think this is the neatest. Bishop takes g5. Temporarily, you know, even encouraging a faster knight hop into d6. But now f5. And I think the road is clear now for black evolving a strong positional advantage. So I think that's the highest quality prophylaxis available in the position. And I think one of the reasons I didn't consider bishop takes g5 is it seems to be playing into white's hands. But I think sometimes, you know, you have to consider these things, because even though you're apparently giving, you know, an immediately exploitable weakness, you know, if there is a resource to make it unexploitable, the d6, then that's fine. f5 stops the only entry point really for either of these knights coming into d6. So I think this would be a fine position for black. In the game, unfortunately, I was a bit tired, is my only excuse. I was preparing some opening systems the day of the game, which he completely sidestepped. And I kept on seeing f6 as a thematic move in the French. And believe it or not, I've just played f6. Unfortunately, he has a nice tactic here. I was looking at some crazy ideas of e takes followed by queen f3, and I thought that was harmless for me. So, for example, I thought, you know, because his bishop would have been pinned, this is crazy, but maybe he's got queen f3 in mind. But here, just queen c6 and black's fine. The bishop can't take because of queen takes f3. And if queen takes, knight takes, I have solved my d6 problem, as well as gaining another central pawn, as well as gaining the g-file attack against his king. Unfortunately, that's just fictional, because after f6, he just played bishop takes f6. So it was a rude awakening for me, this bishop takes f6. And in the game, I got hacked after g takes, queen takes. I took his knight, so temporarily I'm material up, but my king's in the centre. So basically, I was in trouble, especially after this continuation. And I only lasted a few moves after this knight takes e6. So my king, unfortunately, was exposed. This knight takes c5 was very good, because he's exploiting my unprotected queen on b3. For example, here, check. And now c5, just winning the queen. So after this knight takes c5, I was really getting torn to shreds. I played humble treat, queen b8, and after knight takes, king takes, check, he was picking up my bishop, and the worst was not over even after that, because queen f3 was picking up my rook. So basically, I managed to get slaughtered from a position, let's go back, where basically a careful prophylactic move would have given me a big advantage. So the most accurate is simply, I believe, bishop takes, and after knight takes to play f5. If that kind of prophylactic trick helps in your own games, then this video has succeeded. So basically, in a nutshell, I think sometimes you have to be very careful with your prophylactic moves. Treat them with as much, care and conscientiousness as your own attacking moves. It's important to sometimes stop the opponent's powerful positional play, and almost as if you're sometimes playing into it, but then at the last moment you stop the exploitable weakness. I think that's another lesson. That sometimes, take off the bishop, but seal off entry points into key squares if they're a light square or dark square. Sometimes it's okay to give the opponent what they want as long as the weakness you make it unexploitable. Think of good prophylactic play, of basically strengthening your position before going on to the attack. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please leave any comments on YouTube. Thanks very much.